we're starting our week off with a legally served, a bonus legally served. Attorney Franz Borghardt in the house. What's happening, man?
I feel like Atlas.
You feel like Atlas?
Holding stuff up, man.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
Love it. These two cases we're talking about, I'm excited because I've done commentary on these two, and I got some strong feelings.
Excellent. We're going to start with Nicolas Cruz, and we're going to start with this question. How many children do you have to murder before you be put to death?
How many did he kill in that one?
17 charges of premeditated murder and 17 counts of attempted murder, and he pled guilty to every last one of them.
Well, so he did, to be fair, he did plead guilty. He did accept responsibility, right?
I'm sorry. Let's define responsibility.
Hold on. Did he make those families sit through a trial? He pled guilty, correct?
Whoa.
Okay, I'm just asking questions.
Yes, he pled guilty, which means he murdered them.
Yes, absolutely.
He murdered them.
And by the way, what we're talking about, since I'm less fired up than you, and that's okay. Sometimes I'm fired up. We're talking about the penalty phase, right?
Yeah.
Penalty phase of the Cruz trial. He pleads guilty. We go in a death penalty case. There's two phases: guilt and penalty. So by pleading guilty, we go right into the penalty phase, which is about two things: aggravators, reasons to put him to death, and mitigators, any reason, one juror to not put him to death, to rule for life. And a verdict of life under the law is always okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back to your pedestal and rant.
How many children do you have to murder before you're going to get all 12? And this is where this is going. Is you're not. That's like at the end of the day, there's no point in the death penalty anymore.
I will tell you this: if there ever was going to be a death penalty case, if there ever was going to be a reason to put someone down, the kid, whatever you want to call him, Cruz, was finger painting with blood, swastikas, and other stuff, I think in his cell during the trial.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was the case you would vote death. But I think one juror said no, life.
Right.
One.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the question again. What does it take to get there? So let's break this down, not from an emotional standpoint, from an attorney standpoint, okay? When you are going through jury selection, if you are the defense attorney, obviously you're looking for that one from jump, right?
So the truth of the matter is, it's a good question. So in a death penalty trial, there is a special jury selection process for what we call death and life qualifiers. Mm-hmm. And you sit on this kind of a case. There are some people that will always vote death, no matter what. There are some people that will always vote life. Those people don't get onto these juries. So as a defense attorney, your question's good. As a defense attorney, you're looking not for the extreme ends of the spectrum. You're looking for what? Closer to the middle, closer to you.
Okay.
Because those people actually will make the jury. Like, I'm always going to vote death no matter what, and I won't consider mitigators.
Right.
That person's never going to make the jury. Right?
Okay, but like you said, if ever there was a case for the death penalty, it's this guy.
Right. You think about the Louisiana.
So when you're going through the jury selection, how do you make it through that process and come out of the end of it by saying, no, life is good?
So in this case, and I want to come back to, when's the last time we put someone to death in Louisiana? What were the death penalty cases that are hallmarks in Louisiana?
Okay.
Derek Todd Lee. We didn't put him to death, but we voted. Voted to put him to death. But
he beat us to the punch.
Your question is, as a defense attorney, what are the mitigators in this case?
Yeah.
Well, in this case, what evidence did they? And I watched it. They presented that this, essentially their theme was he never had a chance. That this was an inevitable conclusion to a piss poor, horrible life. That essentially that there were some mental health issues, that there was some neglect and abuse, that essentially that there were multiple failures to this guy, and that there were warning signs.
Okay.
I'm not saying I hear you. I hear you. I'm not
but
saying,
you're bringing up more questions.
Yeah,
We're going to walk down it. Continue.
Yeah. So that was the theme of the mitigation. And by the way, mitigation in a death penalty case could be, let's say you're on trial for a death penalty case.
Mm-hmm.
And you're from, where were you born and raised?
Right here.
Right, in Baton Rouge, right?
Yeah. Well, no, born in Metairie, raised in Covington.
Let's say one of the jurors is from Covington.
Yeah.
And says, I don't want to put someone to death who's from Covington.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mitigator. Whether we like it or not, it's a poopy. I almost said the other word. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you for stopping.
It's a poopy mitigator, right? It's not a great mitigator, but it's the law says any reason to vote life is a valid reason.
Let me rephrase the question, okay? This was a death penalty case. Prosecutors sought the death penalty.
Right.
When going through jury selection, how do you not come around to, are you listening with an open mind to all the facts of this case?
So
or are you going in with a preconceived notion that you're going to choose life?
Are you suggesting that the prosecutors were the ones that failed in this case? Because who are you going to be mad at?
I'm absolutely.
You can't be mad at the defense.
No, I can be mad at the jury.
You can be mad at the jury. Defense, I gotta pat them on the butt and say, great job, guys.
100%.
Yeah. Prosecutors, I could say, how did you let this juror on?
Right.
If I'm armchair.
That's where we're at right there.
Yeah. But if you're angry at the Cruz verdict for life versus death, really it's the jury.
Yes.
And by the way, unless there's some kind of legal issue and inappropriate behavior in the jury room, isn't justice served by them making a decision, whether we like the decision or not? Ooh,
okay.
tricky.
No, because that's a bigger question, because now we're talking about the definition of justice.
Right.
Has justice been served? I mean, are 17 children still murdered?
Well, death penalty was never going to bring those kids back.
No, I know. But
mean,
what is just in that case?
I will tell you again, while I am not, look, and to be clear, I do death penalty work.
Yeah.
I work on death penalty cases. I am not a big fan of the death penalty, and frankly, I think life in prison is a huge penalty. I think putting someone in a cell, in a cage for the rest of their life, I think that's a big penalty. But that being said, I can empathize with these. Oh, I can't really, to be candid. I don't know. I don't know
what. Yeah.
Yeah.
None of us can.
Yeah.
So
I can't imagine my son going to school and not coming home.
Right.
That's hard for me to understand. And so in that respect, I do agree with you that this is the death penalty case, right?
Yes. Yes. And okay, so regardless of your take on the death penalty, which, look, I'm from a pragmatic standpoint, I think death penalty cases are far too expensive. The appeals process runs the taxpayer a greater bill than just throwing the guy in jail and locking him up forever and throwing away the key. But if we're gonna walk down this path, damn it, let's walk down this path. If we're going to have this as an option on the table, what's it going to take to get past there?
Well, in this case, there is an allegation of inappropriateness in the jury room. Now, here's the issue, though.
What is that allegation?
That essentially one was going to be life all the way and never was, and then there was some intimidation issues. We can talk about that at the next segment. But Jeopardy is still attached. They've made their decision. I don't think you can undo that, and I think there's going to be some investigative work. But yeah, I think the verdict is the verdict.
Okay, so along with that, they've made their decision, and we are where we are. And the story, and I've read a couple different versions. The one from NPR says, following a jury's recommendation, prosecutors requested that those who were victims of Cruz be allowed to present testimony about the crime and what they see as an appropriate sentence. The judge agreed to the request. That's going to happen in the coming weeks. Now, the judge in the case cannot overrule the jury's decision. So are we still up in the air when this is?
Well, it's a sentencing hearing where they'll get a victim impact statement, and he'll go away for life.
All right, well, that's where we're going to pick it up when we come back. Stick with us on Facebook. The conversation will continue. He's attorney Franz Borghardt. We do Legally Served every Wednesday. Bonus segment to start off your Monday this morning. Quick break, check traffic, check your money now. Coming back next.
So I think one of the last persons we put to death, Greg Bordelon voluntarily waived all appellate rights and said, put me to death. Derek Todd Lee never got to the injection. I'm trying to think, who are the other major death penalty cases that we've, so a serial killer.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Alondra?
Ask the question again.
That's okay.
Well, no, because there's three different questions floating around.
It's your show. What do you want to talk about?
Job over
it's
here.
a complicated topic, right?
No, it is.
I'll say this. I believe in an eye for an eye. You know what I mean?
So positively Old Testament of you.
What's his name? Hammurabi's Code.
Hammurabi.
But
is okay.
I like the eye for an eye. I like it. I like
because
I knew what it was.
It's very Old Testament. It's very
name.
Old Testament of you. You didn't strike me as an Old Testament gal, but okay.
Okay. Strike you as New Testament. I don't know what I strike people as.
By the way, that was not meant to be a joke on your. That eye for an eye is his whole testament.
An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind.
I guess.
Yeah, man. Can you imagine sitting through that trial as a victim's parent?
No, I
Oh,
can't.
man.
I can't. And that's why victims don't determine sentencing.
You would feel compelled to sit through it, but think about. I mean, there's no such thing as closure
can't
on
do
it.
it.
From the
Can't do it.
perspective of the victim's parents, there's no closure.
Nope.
Even when he's getting put down, there's no closure.
Right.
Nothing's bringing your kid back.
Right.
That's my thing about the $1 billion lawsuit on Alex Jones. Like, I don't think by any means that Alex Jones was right, like, at all. But for him to have to pay, like, the families $1 billion, what's that going to do for anybody?
No.
I mean, there is.
But that's what I'm saying is, like, why even make that the verdict? Like, and I saw this meme
Just
that
prove
was
a
like,
point.
So that
Yeah,
verdict. Is
no,
about
like, I get
deterrence.
it.
That verdict is about deterrence.
Mm-hmm.
okay,
So,
but
by the way,
like,
can I sit this far away, or do I need to be closer?
it's like, I saw this thing on Twitter and it was like, you might as well have made the verdict like $1 trillion at that point. Like,
But that verdict was about deterrence, you say, right? So verdicts can be a deterrence?
Yeah.
Really? Because we're told the death penalty is not a deterrent. Is there a bigger
Well,
penalty
hold
than
on.
death?
Hold on.
Mm.
In civil, it's all about money, and that is the only deterrent. In criminal, we know from history, back to the biblical times where it was eye for an eye, we know that putting people in jail or putting them down, it doesn't stop crime.
It doesn't matter civil versus criminal. If you're walking through the risk versus reward and the risk doesn't play into it in criminal, why would the risk play into it in civil?
Because you don't put
I'm not
people-
talking about from a legal perspective. I'm
There's
talking
no-
about from a personal
So there's
perspective.
no- I'm sure these victims would have rather gone up and kicked Alex Jones in the balls.
Sure.
That would have been more rewarding than the $1 billion they're never going to taste.
So I'm waiting for, and the thing about the Alex Jones thing is, it's theater run amok. He's an entertainer.
He's every moment of what's going on.
I understand that. And this, by the way, there's going to be fallout from this. There are going to be unintended consequences of this. When you slap Alex Jones with $1 billion bill for speaking his truth, those who follow him are going to be further entrenched in following him by saying, you see what happens when you speak up? The system shuts you down. Those who believe his bullshit are going to believe it even further.
They're going to double down.
I'm 100%.
Trump is tweeting again. I'm very excited. Trump is tweeting again.
He's back on Twitter, or is he on Truth Social?
Well, I think he's tweeting. I don't know what his new Twitter handle is.
Oh.
It's not, is it number 45?
I stopped paying attention to him. Like, we're not.
He's president again.
That's not going to happen either. Yeah, Rhonda's going to beat him. Rhonda Santos.
Was that a reference to West Wing? What was the name of the president in West Wing that beat
Santos. Potatoes. Where were we going after this?
I want to talk about who we put to death in Louisiana. What were the cases?
Do you have information on
I
that?
don't.
Neither do I.
You talk about one vote versus unanimous. Should one person have that power?
Bonus installment of Legally Served with attorney Franz Borghardt rolling right along. We were going to talk about Louisiana death penalty. We might have to put a pin on that because I want to do some research before we do that. I would rather know a little bit about where we're headed. I do want to ask this question before we move on to the Daryl Brooks case. So stupid.
With all due respect,
No.
everything I'm about to tell you is disrespectful.
Right. So before we put a nice little bow on this one, one of the things that baffles me about this case is the fact that one person can cause the guilty party to stay alive, but it's not the other way around. This is not an evenly swinging pendulum.
The only case or only instance in the justice system where one juror can make the decision and it not be unanimous is death penalty.
Right.
One juror can say, I'm voting for life, and the law is satisfied with that one vote.
Right. That's a
whether we
lot
like-
of power.
It's a huge amount of power, which is why jury selection is so critical. This is why the state and the defense spend so much time in a death penalty case on jury selection. I got to tell you, it's great. This case is an example of great defense work. This case is an example of look, you can have an overwhelming set of facts. I will concede that this is the case. If you ever were going to vote death, this was the case.
Yes. This would be like if I were to take you and Steph Curry. No, follow me on this. You and Steph Curry and put y'all both at the free throw line and say, Steph, you have to make 12 shots in a row. Franz, you have to make 1 out of 12. Where are you putting your money?
Franz.
1 out of 12 sounds a lot stronger.
But keep in mind, statistically, in these death penalty cases, we've historically voted death more than we have life.
Okay, but you have to put somewhat of a closure on that window.
Okay.
Because historically, yes, but what kind of time frame, what kind of social milieu are you looking at here? Because the tides have turned. The winds are changing.
Okay.
Almost
like we're becoming more civilized as a society.
Way too tolerant as a society? No, because this happened just before Caligula as well. So we're becoming more civilized as a society. Is it civilized to turn a blind eye to 17 children mowed down?
Putting someone in a human cage for the rest of their life, and he's how old?
He's young.
Penalty, right? It's not like we slap him on the wrist and say, okay, dude, you can go back out in society. You go back out in the jungle. No, you're putting him in a human cage forever.
A moment ago, you said death penalty, jury selection and death penalty cases are unbelievably expensive.
The whole thing is
right. Okay.
Expensive.
So we walked down this path, and the taxpayers foot the bill for something that was way more expensive than a life sentence case would have been, right?
I think you're accurate on that.
Okay. So what was the point of this exercise? If 1 out of 12 is all you can take, and I can make 1 out of 12 from the free throw line blindfolded.
So the point of the exercise is they could have voted death. You don't know, but the only way you can get to a vote of death is you got to go through the exercise. You got to make a decision to spend the money. It's a investment in justice.
Investment in justice. It sounds like you mispronounced exercise in futility.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just telling you that's the other side of the argument. Am I arguing the other side?
You are. This went down a weird path this morning. It's good. Daryl Brooks.
Oh man,
we got a week 2 recap from last week. Okay, for those that don't know, Daryl Brooks is a guy who is accused of and is on video as driving through a Christmas parade, killing 6 people and injuring
in Wisconsin,
60 more in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Not as much coverage of this case as I would have liked to have seen, but nonetheless, we are getting some of it. There have been some absolutely glorious videos on TikTok. That's what this has turned into.
Well, he's representing himself.
Okay, he is representing himself and doing so poorly.
Well, yeah.
Walk me through how great a lengths courts go to talk people out of doing this.
So this is a guy that his team had pled not guilty by reason of insanity. He took that off, and he's representing himself. The court does not want individuals to represent themselves. They have the constitutional right to do it, but think about it. It's like playing a basketball game without a referee.
Yes.
I mean, it's like someone who doesn't know the rules, who's, So the court is going to advise him, and did advise him multiple times, hey, you have a right to an attorney, and even if you can't afford an attorney, we'll give you an attorney. And by the way, these attorneys are good attorneys.
Right.
Now, I want to represent myself. And his behavior during the trial, by the way, Brian, has been such that he's had to be removed from the courtroom multiple times. At one point, he took his shirt off he was in another room being zoomed in.
Saw that.
And he took his shirt off. It's like, and I said this yesterday on Twitter, when the Titanic went down, there's these musicians that are playing classical violin music.
Yes.
This guy's like playing electric guitar from the Mad Max movie.
Absolutely,
he is so ridiculous.
Yes.
But it's also, he's guilty. He's really guilty. So, it's like watching the Titanic go down in the sense of he's going to get convicted.
Okay, so yes, he's going to get convicted, but his ignorance of the law is glaring on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Hour to hour. Every moment this trial goes on, there is another example of his ignorance of the law.
He's used the sovereign citizen. I'm not a citizen of this country.
Can we make that its own topic one day? The term sovereign citizen.
I don't acknowledge your law. I don't want to pay taxes. I'm my own country.
Right. we see that used on a daily basis, either in traffic stops or tax evasion's another one. It's one where we need to just throw that term out. I don't know where that came from, and I don't know what makes people think it exists. So when it comes to Daryl Brooks, I don't see him getting any sympathy once he's found guilty.
No, he's going to go away for life.
But is there a lesson to be learned here?
Well, he had, they did not seek the death penalty in that case, and it may be because there may be legal reasons for that. I don't know Wisconsin law. I would assume there's an issue with his mental state. Mm-hmm. By the way, a lot of times prosecutors say, I'm not going to seek the death penalty because they can see the trajectory of this guy has a severe mental health issue.
Right.
This guy has a low IQ.
And there's a level of pragmatism there.
Right. There's also a level of...
Well, we got 30 seconds left, but that brings us right back around to where we started with the death penalty case. If you see that path of least resistance to throw this guy away for a long time, forever...
Sometimes victims want that. Sometimes victims don't want cases
they want to be done with
20 years, yeah.
But in the case of Nicolas Cruz, we did not walk down that path, which is why it's so infuriating. He's attorney Franz Borghardt. Going to be back in 2 days for our regular installment of Legally Served. Always appreciate the time, brother.
Yes.
We got to check the CBS World News Roundup. That's coming your way right now. Top stories and trending after that, then Medical Monday and Stephen Wagasback from LABI.
So Tiffany in the chat thread sent you a list of people who've been executed. Good job, Tiffany.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you. And then, dude, I love sovereign citizens as a topic. I love sovereign citizens as a topic. I don't recognize their laws. All right. Let me go make
it's such a stupid term.
Well, is it though? Here's the thing. At some point in our history, someone put a flag in earth and said mine.
No, I'm aware of that.
And your house.
Okay. You can put a flag in the earth and say mine, but if anybody challenges you for it, you have to fight them.
You got to keep your flag up.
Right. So, okay, then you declare war on the U.S. to determine your citizenship. When we wanted independence from Great Britain, we fought for it. 13 colonies stood up and said, take this. And by the way, nice choice wearing red.
I feel like the Belushi line from when the Nazi burned.
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
I'm out. I'll see you guys
later, bro.